Alright guys, today we are talking about the Memphis Shades Road Warrior fairing for your Harley Softails and what windscreen is going to give you the best results for your bike. Alright everybody, what is up? What is up? As always, thanks for stopping by to another video today. Today we are talking about the Memphis Shades Road Warrior fairing for your Harley Davidson Softail motorcycles. So I know that's a pretty big, popular fairing that a lot of people do with their Softails. There's a lot of flexibility, a lot of customization that can go along with it. But also one of the biggest things that you hear about it as well is how can I get good wind protection out of that and reduced wind buffeting on the top of the head. I think that's one of the biggest things that people kind of take a look at when they're considering any fairing options, specifically the Memphis Shades Road Warrior. Is hear a lot of conversation online as far as forums, posts, YouTube videos, and things like that about how can I get the best wind protection, but also the most comfortable wind protection to reduce wind buffeting as well, to kind of reduce a lot of that vibration and really big impact of wind to the head. So today we're going to talk a little bit about my experience so far with the Road Warrior fairing, a couple different screens that I have tried out on it as well. I'm going to tell you guys what has worked best for me to create the most comfortable experience with my particular setup on my 2022 Harley Davidson Street Bob to get kind of the most comfortable experience as far as deflecting some of the wind, the style, and reducing buffeting as well. So of course, before we get started on this one, drop it down in the comments and let me know what some of your guys' experiences have been like with your fairings on your motorcycles. Let me know if you're rocking a Road Warrior fairing, what you did to kind of get it adjusted best for you, or what other fairings out there you think might provide you kind of the best results on your motorcycle. Drop it down there in the comments. I'll be curious to get some of your feedback out there. Also, any tips that you guys have to reduce buffeting. I know that's a big thing that a lot of people are always questioning. If anybody can go down in their comments and look around and get some helpful insight from you guys out there, I'm going to let you know of my experience as well. So I have currently tried 3 different screens on the base of the Road Warrior here. So I'm going to go through each one, give you a little bit of my experience of all 3. I'm going to save the best one for last, the one that I like the most, that I think gives me the best look, the best wind protection, and the most comfortable wind protection as well. So make sure you stick around for that. So one thing I want to let you guys know right before we get started, and I've mentioned this in a couple other videos, is before you pick out any fairing options for the front of your bike, I would recommend getting your seat set up situated first, probably even your seat and your controls, because that's going to put you in your set riding position. So if you get your fairing before you have your riding position set up, you might have to do a little bit more adjusting, but if you throw your seat on there first, find your good, comfortable riding position. I think that's the key to do that first, because you already know where you're going to be seated, where your head and shoulders are going to be once you have your seat in place. Do that first before you get your fairing, because then that will give you the proper knowledge of where to adjust your fairing from there once you already have the proper seat set up. All right guys, so right off the bat, I want to show you the first setup I had with the first screen that I had on the Road Warrior. And that was the Dark Smoke 11-inch size here. So for me, I thought that was actually the best looking one in my opinion. That's why I wanted to go with that one. That's what I started with, was the 11-inch that you see here. Just kind of the height seemed right about the perfect size for my Street Bob in particular. I liked just kind of the look and the angle that it gave from the side profile. So let me hop on here now and give you an idea of what this is going to look like for me on the bike. I'll tell you a little bit about my experience with it as well, having it on the bike. So like I said, in my opinion, I thought this was the best looking one. I also thought this was going to have a really good wind protection and wind coverage, which it did. But now a little bit about me and my personal experience with the 11-inch here on top of the Road Warrior fairing. Keep in mind, I'm 5'6", so everybody's height is going to be different here. So for me at 5'6", it's coming right about in line with my nose. So it's providing some pretty good wind protection here and some pretty decent protection all the way up to around 65, 70 miles an hour. But what I started to notice with the 11-inch in my setup was I really started to take a lot of vibration kind of at the top of the head here for what some people call wind buffeting. Now, from my understanding and what I've researched, keep in mind, I'm no engineer, I'm no scientist, but from what I've researched online, the buffeting seems to occur when you have the fairing on the front of the bike, you're traveling at that higher rate of speed, you're creating a void of air back here, allowing all the wind and air to rush up underneath, which can sometimes cause that wind and vibration on the top of your head here. And with the 11-inch on my bike, with me being 5'6", up around 80 to 85 miles an hour, I was really taking a lot of vibration, so much so that it was almost even obstructing my visibility with my helmet vibrating so much. So it was pretty good around 65 to 70, but once I really got up there on the highway, started cruising pretty fast, that's when I really started to notice that vibration, and I was like, I might have to look for a change here. I might either have to raise it or lower it. So that's what kind of happened with me in my experiences. Again, the buffeting, I think, was coming from that rush of displaced air back here, coming up and creating that vibration. So for me, I decided to go down. Next, we're gonna throw a 9-inch vented screen on top of the fairing. Alright, so as you can see now, next up, my next option was the 9-inch vented fairing. So my theory there, again, was just maybe if we could drop that down by a couple inches, maybe reduce a little bit of that deflection of air going to the top of my head, maybe more to like the shoulders or so. Also thought maybe reducing a little bit of that void of air back here, reducing the amount of air rushing into that air pocket, hopefully reducing some of the vortex of wind and buffeting back here. So again, this has the vents on it. I also thought maybe that would be helping with the reduction of breaking up some of that air coming through here. So I'll give you a look at the 9-inch vented with me taking a seat on it. So again, definitely drops it down a little bit more towards my chin, the top of the fairing here. But again, as we continue to go on, this was better up around like 70, 75 miles an hour. So I was able to go a little bit faster cruising speeds without getting some of the buffeting and things like that. But still, once I got up around 80 to 90 miles an hour, I was still taking some of that vibration, some of that vortex swirling air right here, vibrating the helmet. I will say lowering it did help to where I could get higher speeds before that would happen, but it still kind of continued to happen once I got up around those 80, 90 miles an hour. Again, 65 to 75 seemed to be okay, but once we really started to hit some of those higher speeds, that vortex of air really started to vibrate there. So at that point, I was like, well, what else can we do here? I was kind of thinking, we're getting at a point where you either have to really drop it drastically low to get it totally off of your face to create a clean pocket of air right here, or you almost have to extend it as high as you can go to have your head fully covered, in which case I think you there are required to have a clear windshield on top of the fairing. So for me, it started to seem like I was either gonna have to go really high or really low. I didn't wanna go super high because I don't necessarily like the look of those really high ones. Now I know that will most likely have you completely covered and reduce any of the air coming in at that point, but I didn't want to go that high. So I started searching around and I finally found the option that started to really work best for me. I'll show you guys that one right now. All right guys, so for me and where I ended up getting the best results for me specifically is what you see on the bike right here, right now, that if you guys have been tuning in for a while, probably what you have been seeing most commonly on my Street Bob. This is the cafe screen for the Memphis Shades Road Warrior fairing. So I don't know that it's a super popular one. I don't see it out there on the road a whole lot. I don't see a lot of pictures with people having it. I don't know how common it is. I don't even know if a lot of people know it exists, but I was browsing the Memphis Shades website and I found that they have this cafe style screen for the Road Warrior. And I was kind of thinking to myself, I have the cafe fairing on my Sportster getting good results and pretty decent wind protection there. So I was like, why not give this one a shot? The Road Warrior base is a lot bigger. Maybe just throwing this extra little lip of the cafe screen on here would be beneficial. And I'll be honest with you guys, it has gotten me the best results so far. And I'll hop on and explain what I mean by that. So, and again, I'm no scientist, I'm no engineer, and really what I think this is coming from is if you take a look at the cafe screen, you'll see that it's a little bit more rounded than the traditional Road Warrior screens. The previous two that I had on there had a very sharp slant and angle, which I think creates a lot of that wind deflection kind of coming straight at your head there. So My theory anyways, what we have with the cafe screen here, it's a little bit lower. You can see it's coming almost at my chest. So what it seems to be doing with this lower position and very rounded is it seems to be creating a cleaner bubble of air. Now don't get me wrong, I'm taking wind. Obviously you're on a motorcycle, you're gonna be feeling wind no matter what when you're on this thing, but it seems to be creating a cleaner bubble to where the wind is just rushing straight past my head and shoulders instead of creating that jumbled up vortex of the bigger fairing, creating any vibration through my head. So I think that's what kind of has been giving me the best results here is this rounded bubble shape, also dropping it down. You've got a little bit more of an elongated angle here as well, instead of that sharp straight up and down angle of the traditional screens that most people have on the Memphis Shades Road Warrior fairing. Now again, like I said, there's a lot of variables that are gonna go into this for you. One of the biggest ones kind of being your setup with your seat and your height. I think if you are down a little bit lower and shorter than me, maybe that's when you start to get some buffeting and trouble with that coming straight at your forehead. For me, I noticed that it's coming right at my chest, past my shoulders. It's pretty comfortable. I've had this thing up 100 miles an hour, over 100 miles an hour on the highway. Again, you're taking wind, but it's a good, comfortable, clean wind with absolutely no vibration of the helmet. So I wanted to back it up just a little bit further to give you a little bit more of a full screen shot here of the entire bike and where this cafe screen kind of sits for me. Again, kind of projects right towards the shoulders, creating a clean pocket of air around me for the head. Like I said, it's been super comfortable. And also, in my opinion, I really like the sleek design and look as well. For some reason, I really think this just fits the bike nicely as far as that bobber mentality of a little bit of a smaller screen. You're not getting too big and gaudy and clunky up front there with some of your bigger screens. Alrighty guys, so I think that's gonna start to wrap this one up for now. Again, just my experience with the Memphis Shades Road Warrior fairing so far. 3 different screens that I tried on it, the 11-inch, 9-inch vented, and then finally settle on the cafe style here as my favorite and most productive for me. So like I said, if you guys have experience with windscreens or fairings up front on your bike, feel free to drop your comments and experience down there to help out anybody that might be researching this stuff. I know sometimes it can get hard to kind of really find the best setup for you, but that seems to be what worked for me. I know everybody's gonna kind of have a little bit of a different experience out there. So if there's anything I missed on that one or any additional questions you guys have that I didn't cover, feel free to drop them down there. That'll wrap it up for now, guys. Make sure you go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, make sure you guys ride safe out there. It's the Moto Jawn. We'll see you all down there.